Welcome and thank you for joining us. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. On the program today, we're bringing back a special guest that we've had on the program before. She's simply known as the go-to coach. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today our guest, Ms. Karen Monteverdi, as we talk about how we can live consciously in an ego-driven society. Karen, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
My pleasure, Daniel. Thank you.
Now, how did you get involved, or what led you into the direction of your life's work here?
Well, let's see how to answer that question. I had some childhood trauma, and I was working through that. I'd done 11 years of therapy, and it just didn't seem to be really helping me. It helped me cope, but not really move past all the childhood trauma. And so I started exploring different therapies besides psychotherapy. And one of the things that I found was a center back in Kentucky called the Center for Experiential Education. And there they taught all kinds of different workshops, and I went there and did a 4-year stint where I learned about different ways of being, and that turned out to be living consciously. We learned all different kinds of things. And then, make a long story short, I moved back to Portland, and my husband at the time had had a terrible accident, died in the accident, and I was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. So that led me to get a coach. And what I discovered about coaching was that it really takes a whole different aspect of all the psychotherapy and creates an opportunity to find your own way out of the drama and the trauma that has occurred. And I really liked the technique, and it allowed me to search for what really worked for me. Mm-hmm. And what really worked for me was encompassing the whole aspect of who I was, the mind, the body, the spirit, and the emotion, and create an awareness and intelligence about that I now know as consciousness. And I really found it an amazing tool to move me forward. And so through that, then I went to school and became a coach. And now I help other people who have had childhood traumas or are just stuck in life move and find their own way out of their own situation.
Mm-hmm. Now, Karen, what does that look like for a lot of people that you've been able to work with? I mean, where they're living along with the ego. That seems to be a real struggle for, a lot of people. I mean, we're in a society today that has so many messages that tell us who we should be, what we should have, and what we should be doing with ourselves, that when you try to pursue your own life path, whatever that may be for whatever the individual is, they can become split by that because they don't feel that they've met up with the success they believe that they should have by a certain period of time. And so we tend to feel, well, maybe we should just go back to doing things the way they were before, no matter how miserable it feels, because it feels safe.
Well, and that's the key word right there, safe. When you come coach with me, and what this process does, it allows you to create a space where I hold the intention that what you want to achieve in your life, whether it be relationship, job, a way of life, whatever it is, I hold that it's already completed. And having someone who holds that for you, what we've discovered is it gives them the ability, the client, the ability to see that it's possible. And then through the coaching process, find out what it's going to take to actually create what they want to achieve. And we start with the end in mind, a lot like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People teaches, you start with the end in mind, and then you visualize backwards. How did I get there? What do I need to do? And then you create benchmarks, which allow you to have little places of where you reach your hurdles. And then when you're up against a challenge, you have somebody in your corner, someone on your side that you can work it out. And really, the whole thing begins in your mind. And I heard your Lori Day yesterday with Baba G on Beyond 50 radio, and he encompasses that. We start in the mind first. We recognize that that's really where the creation is. And if we can get to a place where we can actually see it and embody it in that visualization, in our spiritual self, in our whole self, then the emotions fall in line for that, the actions fall in line, the behaviors, the beliefs, the characteristics all begin to align with that, knowing that this is accomplished.
I was just thinking as you were saying that how a lot of times when people set a goal or there is a purpose or direction that they want to go, and they start to feel success in it, like, boy, I'm starting to take steps, it's beginning to happen for me, doors are beginning to open, and then something can come along that seems to sabotage that. And they may find that this is a theme that replays over and over again in their lives. What would you say to someone like that, how they can overcome an obstacle such as that self-sabotage? Why, just when I'm right around the corner from having what I think I want, boom, something comes and kind of happens.
Well, that's what we call an underlying automatic commitment. And an example of that might be, someone believes that they're starting to earn a good living. They can let go of their job. They can start creating, this income on a regular basis, and all of a sudden, everything just starts falling apart. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a commitment there. So what is the commitment? And it typically has to do with our childhood indoctrination. So look at what you think about money. What is it that you believe? And oftentimes, especially in our culture, there's a belief that permeates, just drips in our culture is that money is the root of all evil. Mm-hmm. And if you don't want to be evil, what do? When you start creating success and money, you start believing that there's something wrong with that. Mm. So there's an opportunity to retrain your brain, look at that indoctrination, and is it really true for you? And if so, then get a job. And if it's not so, then let go of that belief and replace it with something that serves you in being able to accomplish your goals.
Now, Karen, what exactly does it mean, and this is for our listeners, what does it mean to live consciously?
That's a really good question, Daniel. Living consciously is using the laws of the universe. And with personal growth work, we look at forgiveness, mindfulness, and understanding that the brain can be retrained, putting forth, a game plan for creating a life of our own design. So living consciously is being aware of those tapes, those underlying commitments, those beliefs and those behaviors and those agreements that we've made throughout our life, and recognize that we have a choice to continue those behaviors, those beliefs, those characteristics, and those agreements if we choose to. And if they serve us, then by all means, that's probably a really good choice. Like if I have a belief that I'm confident, then everything that I do will be appropriate for that moment to show that I'm confident. I will act that way, I feel that way, I experience myself authentically as confident, But if I have a self-sabotaging belief, recognize that those are learned behaviors, and those can be unlearned. Those are learned, and beliefs change in an instant. You know, we have the ability to change our mind at any time. And the goal here is to really recognize that that opportunity changes everything. And when we become consciously aware and live that we see our mind and our body and our spirit and our emotions as a whole, then when something's out of whack, we can immediately be aware of it and take corrective action.
I really like what you're saying here, because it's sort of a powerful way for our listeners to actually maybe get in touch with what we're talking about here. And we talk about beliefs. And sometimes we may not always be aware of what they are, but certainly within you, wouldn't you say that there are triggers that kind of let you know, wait a minute, there's a belief about this I have about something? A good example, for instance, one time when I was laid up in bed sick, my wife came and brought me one of those magazines, like Us Magazine, or, People What, I can't remember what it was. Of course, this is full of celebrities, and they're always talking about the fashions they had, or here they are at the beach, and this, that, the other, and then all the troubles they have. And I found myself, as I'm flipping through the pages here, just getting really aggravated with the whole thing. And finally, I came to a crossword puzzle that happened to be in it, and I started doing that, and it relaxed me. But what was interesting is the feeling of being unsettled while I was flipping through all this, and I thought, well, this is an interesting way to explore beliefs that I'm probably not aware of. But is that pretty much how it works, that you feel a certain unsettlement about things?
Sure. And, we have a podcast that actually addresses that. And my husband, and I'll tell you a little story that really encompasses that. I'll make it as quick as possible because I know we have a little time. But my husband and I were watching this movie, and the actors were overacting and they were dramatizing, but the message was really awesome. So we he was starting to get irritated and agitated and fidgeting, and then start vocalizing it, and just turned off the movie.
Uh-huh. And
I'm sitting there going, what is going on here? And he discovered that the over-dramatization really irritated him. Well, turns out, when we explored it, I had him breathe and explore where in his body that showed up, and he found that it was in his heart. Well, that told me that there was something really heavy in his heart that he was holding as a truth. And so further exploration of that discovered that when he was a young child, there was a play. He lived in Aloha, and there was a play. There was a call. And he had practiced and practiced and practiced for this play, and it was just an open call. So he went, and he tried out for that, and he just, he gave 100%, his whole heart into it, and he didn't get the part. And he went home crushed. And from that time on, the person that did get the part, and I'm paraphrasing it a little bit, I'm not getting all the details, and I know that, but the person that did get the part was very dramatic, overly so, and he thought, well, I could have done that, but that's just silly. It looks silly. And so he went home holding that in his heart, that people who over-dramatize, he was really angry at that person. And so in the moment that we were doing the coaching, he let go of that. And the pain in his heart subsided. He could then watch the movie, relax, and he created forgiveness for that person, for all the people that chose that person, for himself for being angry at that person, and the whole event. And that forgiveness allowed him to sit and really get the message of what this movie was trying to do.
Fascinating. Did he ever go back to try getting back into acting or playing?
No, he's actually did get into a band called the Ken Hansen Band. They're local here, and he plays drums and he loves it. And so he does have a stage presence, and is up on stage.
Ah, very good. Now, tell us about your organization. As I understand, you have actually developed what is known as the Green Mountain Enrichment and Empowerment Center.
That is correct. This is a virtual center, so we actually don't have a physical location, which gives us a lot of freedom. And so we do most of our coaching over the phone, and we do free teleclasses every month. And so people from all over the United States and all over the world call in and learn about living consciously. Sometimes we do give live workshops. Green Mountain Enrichment and Empowerment Center is sponsoring a workshop for us at New Renaissance this Saturday, and I'll be hosting and moderating that workshop.
And this is, of course, the New Renaissance Bookstore located in Northwest Portland, Oregon?
That's correct,
okay.
On the 21st.
And what's your website where people can find out more about this work of conscious living?
It's gotocoach.net, GOTOACH.net.
Now, for the listeners out there, talking with Karen Monteverde about how we can now live consciously, let's talk about, if you could briefly, what the risks are of actually making yourself live consciously.
Well, one little correction. You can't make yourself live consciously. You can only invite yourself to live consciously. So that's part of it. You can't force things. You have to let go of control and thinking that you can manipulate and change things. And that's really what we call free will. You recognize that you can't change other people, and that you learn how to be with somebody if they're upset or angry, and you allow them to give acknowledgement and acceptance for how they're being. But it also allows you to quickly, easily, and effortlessly take correct action. So if somebody actually is being abused or is being hurt, you're not stuck in that place of being frozen. You can take action. So then that also allows you to be 100% responsible and be what is needed at every moment. You take off the mask. It can be terrifying for people to be their authentic self. But you create reality authentically. And once you have the courage to stand for yourself in that way, it opens up all kinds of possibilities that you recognize how this awareness affects your thoughts, your emotions, and your beliefs. And you start being your authentic self, whatever that is for you. You get in touch with your source energy, whether that be your heart center. For some, it's God. For others, it's the universe. Whatever that is, you become in touch with that. And you get to decide what that is. And the world becomes a more beautiful and joyous place. It becomes a vast playground of choice and experimentation. And you find that people are supporting and safe. It's a safe place. And it's just so much fun to be able to heal those old wounds and let go and realize that I'm not trapped in that world that I was trapped in as a child. And I can forgive that situation. And that was really important recently for me, a real big deal that happened in my own personal life was that my mom had been diagnosed with cancer in January, cervical cancer. And she was diagnosed with stage 3B cervical cancer, and they told us that she had 6 months to live. Now, I'm not saying that what I do heals cancer, and I want to make real clear that this may or may not work for anyone, or everyone, but my mom, after working with me for 3 weeks, her diagnosis went from stage 3B to stage 2B.
Mm.
And then we worked another 3 weeks, and it went down to stage 1B. And at that point, she said, "Okay, I've had enough." It's really intense emotional work when you're dealing with illness, because you have to go back to the childhood wound and clean it out, basically. So then she decided to go do allopathic medicine. She went to an OHSU, and they told her 6 weeks of radiation and external and 2 weeks of internal radiation, and she would be completely cured. This Friday, we got the word she is completely 100% cured.
Wow. Congratulations.
So this is really powerful work that helps people recognize that the dis-ease in their body is often created by their mind. It doesn't work for everybody, but for those who really want to embrace cleaning out the past and living in the present, we even have a workshop for that called You Are Not Your Past.
I know, isn't that amazing how we kind of end up shackling ourselves with chains, and then we wonder why things just don't seem to be working out for us, and how come everybody else seems to get all the lucky breaks, and the breaks that I get tend to break me?
Well, I would say that would be what you categorized earlier as a self-defeating attitude, and that it's not necessary.
Because it's quite interesting, and I'm sure you've probably experienced this, Karen, as you went through your own transformation, that as these so-called bad things happen, you start looking at them going, well, you know, they're only bad because I choose to see it that way. But what can I see now differently? What can I experience now differently with a situation like this? And you find that reality tends to be kinder than you thought it was.
Well, and sometimes those are signposts for us. Oftentimes those are signposts to recognize where we're not living consciously and help us, you know, when we have those irritations or upsets, especially if they're overreactive for the situation, it's a clear signpost that there's something that needs to be worked on. That when we're in judgment or projection onto another person, there is no out there. It's all starting in here. Mm-hmm. So if we change our attitude and change our perception, our perspective and our reality changes. It has no choice.
Fascinating stuff. I always like bringing this on the show because it's like each step, you know, there's more and more that you learn and try to apply to your own lives. And really, as everybody was caught up in The Secret, for instance, on the law of attraction, they thought, well, you know, I can just sit around and intend all day long. That's what the movie's telling me. And I'm like, well, are you sure about that? I think it's really about taking action, but the action with the pure intention is what it brings the attraction.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you know, The Secret was wonderful in bringing up the conversation. We have to stay in the conversation to really learn how to manifest powerfully. And it is, you know, I mean, for years, okay, in 1996, I had my car stolen 5 times, not once, but 5 times.
Wow.
I had my house broken into. I had, you know, stuff stolen out. Just all kinds of things happened to me where I had things taken from me. Mm-hmm. And my coach said to me, well, you know, you're creating that. And I said, what? I'm not how am I creating somebody stealing from me?
Really, who wants to, you know, have their house broken into? Are you nuts?
Right. And she said, well, you believe that it could happen, right? And I said, well, yeah, I see evidence. It did happen. What are you talking about? And she said, well, if you take that part out of your reality, then it can't happen to you. And, I mean, that just threw me. I went, what is she talking about? But I went home and I started thinking about the thoughts that I had during those months that happened. And I was feeling as though I was lacking. I was feeling like things were being taken away from me. And, that was showing up in my reality.
Mm-hmm.
And since 1996, I haven't locked my door. I haven't had anything stolen from me. I leave my bike unlocked downtown Portland. Wherever I'm at, I leave my car unlocked. Even last night, I left my cell phone sitting on the dashboard while we went to dinner. And I saw the passing thought of, somebody might take that. But I didn't give it any energy, and it just left. And without that energy, my cell phone was still sitting there when I came home out of the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to worry about anybody ever taking anything from me again, because I really have a belief that it's not mine anyway. I'm just using it. I don't identify myself with my stuff, and that makes so they can't take anything away from me.
Fascinating stuff. Karen, again, go ahead and give out your website for our listeners.
Sure. Go to coach.net, GOTOACH.net, N-E-T. And again, I'll be at New Renaissance this Saturday from 7 to 8:30, and that's on 23rd and in Northwest Portland. And I'll also give you my phone number. It's 503-762-3118. And I encourage you to come check us out and maybe even sign up for a free teleclass. Find out for yourself what you can create.
And find out how your belief can change in an instant. Karen Monteverde, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
Daniel, it was my pleasure.
Again, you can learn to live consciously. In fact, you can take a conscious step right now by visiting us at our website, which is beyond50radio.com. That is the number 50. Sign up for our free weekly e-newsletter. We'll also be sure to have this information that we're talking about here posted for you to find out more. We thank you again for tuning in. This is the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis, and remember, live your day past